Good evening, and thanks for the opportunity to present. It's nice to see so many people here, actually. So you never know when you attend these events how well attended they're actually going to be. So it's good to see lots of folks here, and thank you for your interest. I'll move on and really begin by saying that Eden is the only AIM-listed company, in fact, the only UK-based listed company focused on sustainable pesticides for professional crop protection in agriculture and horticultural applications. This is part of a global industry. We'll talk a little bit about some of the details later on, but the point is that what we're trying to do is help farmers produce the crops that they produce sustainably and effectively without loss of any yield or any additional costs. This evening, it's going to be myself and Alex, our CFO, as mentioned earlier. I've been with the company for about 9.5 years now. My background is in the specialty chemical industry. Despite my best interests, I've been trying to escape the industry almost my entire career. But what is quite interesting and what's changed relatively recently is that regulation is driving the pace of innovation in our industry as a whole. And what that's done for the first time in, I'll say 40, 50, 60 years, but for many decades, is the pace of innovation is increasing. And no more, it's not true in any place other than in the crop protection industry as a whole, where we're seeing consumer concerns about pesticide safety, et cetera, and the environment really driving innovation and regulation. Alex will be speaking a little bit later, and we're going to do a little bit of a tag team as we go through this. Alex has been with the company for a good number of years now, about 12 years, and brought the company to AIM back in 2012, and he'll go into a bit more detail on his background and a few of the other topics as we move along. It goes without saying that we operate in a very highly regulated industry. So when we talk about pesticide use, obviously that's a slightly even emotive topic in some sectors, and for good reason. So the point is that we have found ourselves in an industry that is very, very highly regulated. And why that's important? Well, I mean, for us, regulation is very much a double-edged sword. It drives innovation. It pushes us on into new areas to achieve new standards. It removes competitive products from the market. And at the same time, regulation controls the pace with which we can enter new markets. So when we talk about our label, and that's the label for one of our products, what we mean is really the addressable market. The regulators will tell us you can use your product on grapes to treat this disease. And that's all they're telling us. That crop, that disease, and therefore if that's what your label is, that is your addressable market. So you'll see through the course of this presentation, we're spending a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of money to try to broaden the label out for our product, to essentially grow the addressable market for our product, to serve a whole range of different problems that face farmers across the world. So regulatory approval for us is key. We currently have regulatory approval in 22 different countries around the world. Right now we have about 100 different crop uses approved across our portfolio of 3 products. And we are working very, very diligently to continue to expand that and thereby increase our addressable market overall. The way we approach the market, we're not out selling to farmers directly, although we do meet with farmers from time to time. We actually work through a partnership model. So what Eden does is we register the active ingredients, we formulate the products, we register those products, and then we bring them to market through a series of partners. And some of these are names that you might recognize. Corteva, if you're not aware, is the combined agri-science business of Dow and DuPont. They are the world's largest agri-science input pure play company. So it's a very significant business. And you see the same is true for a good number of others. Sumi Agro, for example, is a part of Sumitomo. Eastman Chemicals, an American major multinational. Sipchem Oxen Group are actually an Italian-based multinational. And if you know our industry, you'll know all those names very well. So we partner with folks on a local, regional, national, and even global level, depending upon what product we're talking about. So the drive towards sustainability in agriculture is something that is more than just something that's slightly catchy to say. And the major issue here is that what we see happening globally is that the population is actually growing. We know that. We're much more sensitive today about land use management issues, so deforestation is generally recognized as bad. There isn't going to be any new crop in a macro scale. There isn't going to be a lot of new agricultural land dedicated to the production of crops that we know and love. What's going to happen is we're going to have to become more and more efficient about what we're doing. And so at an EU level, for example, there are some folks who would like to say, we should ban pesticides, they're bad, right? That's a really simple one, let's do that. Well, that's a slightly farcical idea, because at the end of the day, most of our agricultural systems around the world, and particularly in the developed world, are highly intensive, and you can't take the tools away that are required for intensive production without having significant consequences and a major impact on cost. And so you either need more land to continue to produce the same quantity of food, or you need to continue to do so very effectively and efficiently. What does that mean? Well, ultimately what that translates into is the need to replace the incumbent products with products that do the same job just as well, but in a sustainable way. And you know, we use the word, I've somewhat grown to dislike the word sustainability because it's so overused today. It's sort of become a valueless word, but in our industry, it is actually quite important, and it is quite relevant to think about what we do with the land that we have. And so when we spray pesticides on the land that accumulate in the environment and accumulate in animal tissue, for example, that's not sustainable by definition. And there are a good range of products that unfortunately fall within that category. What we're trying to do is solve the same problems, but in a way that is absolutely sustainable and doesn't lead to some of the same challenges. So moving right along, we fit within what is called the biopesticides industry. So currently, by 2027, the forecasts are that the industry will be worth about $11 billion. It'll probably actually be a little bit larger than that. I've seen recently some of those forecasts have been revised upward. And the compound annual growth rate is about 15%. And again, it's actually growing a little bit faster than that at the current pace post-pandemic. We fit within the overall global about $60 billion global pesticide industry. So you can see this is a significant portion within that, but it's growing far more rapidly than the overall pesticide industry. And what we expect is to see the biopesticide segment of the industry overtake the conventional synthetic pesticide industry relatively quickly. So we'll talk a little bit about our products, what we're doing, how we're trying to solve these problems. And we begin with two platform technologies. First, we have a portfolio of active ingredients that we use to formulate products. So the active ingredients are what does the job, but they have to be formulated in such a way that they do that effectively and in a usable product form. So like a lot of formulated product industries, like the pharmaceutical industry, for example, and some of you are probably familiar with that, it's not just the active that does the job, it's the formulated product that does the job, and that's very important. So we're working with a portfolio of 3 different active ingredients. Those active ingredients are all very favorable from an environmental and human health sustainability perspective. They're all derived from plants themselves. So what we're effectively doing is we're packaging up a part of a plant's own immune system, if you will, their own defense mechanisms. We're isolating them and packaging them in a clever way and then formulating with them to solve these problems. And the reason we've chosen 3 different active ingredients which are essentially derived from essential oils, the reason we've chosen 3 is because it gives us the ability to formulate a very wide range of products that target a very wide range of pests and diseases. And so in different combinations, we come up with products with some very different activity profiles. So we weren't just trying to complicate our lives or add additional costs. What we're really trying to do is develop the broadest product portfolio that we possibly could. Our active ingredients are allowed for use in organic agriculture in the EU and other territories around the world. That's not because we're going after the organic market per se, Typically, the organic market is relatively small, although it's growing very, very quickly. The reason we do this is because we want to differentiate our products for conventional growers versus standard conventional chemistry. And so if we have a product that competes on par in terms of its efficacy with conventional chemistry, but we can tell a farmer, this isn't going to cost you anymore. It's going to do the same job. It's going to do the same job just as well, but it's also allowed in organic. They're going to chomp at the bit to be able to get a hold of that product. And that's the reason behind that strategy. Also, our products have some other benefits associated with them. And I won't go into a lot of detail, but we're certainly happy to take questions at the end about this. But the point is that the products not only are efficacious, but they have some ancillary benefits, like they can be used right up to the point of harvest. Why? Because they're exempt from residue reporting. And this is really delivers to the farmer maximum flexibility and the maximum beneficial profile for that active ingredient. What we've done is we've taken those active ingredients and we've packaged them up, as I mentioned earlier, with our second technology, which is our formulation technology that we've branded Sustain. What this is it's a way of encapsulating active ingredients to make more usable products. And I can go into a lot of detail, but I would probably send you all to sleep given the hour. The long and short of it is that we're able to formulate very effective products using this technology. And we're able to do so in a way that's free from the use of microplastics, which is a major issue in our and several other industries at the moment. From those three active ingredients, we have so far developed 4 different product categories. So you see here, Mevalon, which is our first product, is a fungicide that was initially targeted toward grapevine fungal diseases. Our second product is a nematicide called Cedros. Nematodes are little parasitic worms that are microscopic that affect a very, very broad range of crops. And that product is being launched globally in partnership with Eastman Chemical. Our third product is actually this product, the seed treatment product, which we developed over the course of the last 4 years with Corteva. And a seed treatment is basically a coating that goes on a seed, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that's all about. But we're currently enjoying the benefit of selling that product under a temporary approval in Italy. So we've got that product to market in a very, very short period of time within our industry, from proof of concept to use allowed under an emergency approval within 3 years is moving very quickly in our industry. And then our next product to be launched is an insecticide. So the product characteristics, I mentioned some of these already, but again, we're focused on delivering products that are free from residue reporting, that can be used right up to the point of harvest, that are polymer free or plastic free, that gives away from the microplastics issues, and there are a good number of others. The point is that we're developing and delivering products that are well differentiated from our competition in a competitive industry where the general trend and the direction of travel is toward more sustainable but equally effective products. And with that, I'll turn it over to Alex.
I'll be told to hold this very close to my mouth, so hopefully you can hear me, but it doesn't sound like I'm shouting at you. But as Sean mentioned, I'm Alex Avery. I'm the CFO, been with the company for a good number of years now. I'm just going to give you an idea, hopefully, of the opportunities that present for Eden in terms of the addressable market that Sean referenced earlier. And again, that really relates to the label that's on the product. We break it down by geography. As you can see, we've got a table for each of the products that we currently have. We've got the current on the left. And by the way, this will be put on our website, edenresearch.com. So if you can't quite see it from where you are, don't worry, you can have a look later in more detail. But essentially for each product, so this one is Mevalon, the first one that we launched back in 2016 in Southern Europe in particular, tackles a disease called botrytis on grapes in particular, or initially on grapes. And again, we've been working very hard to expand that label and increase the addressable market. At the moment, we are looking at around 3 million euros of potential sales for Eden in Southern EU. The US, the reason that's highlighted is we got EPA and US approval towards the end of 22. Finally, we got California approval as well at the very beginning of this year. So now we can start to sell into that market. And for all of these under current sort of columns, we have distributors lined up, some of those companies that Sean referenced earlier that you saw the logos for. Overall, they're around a 15 million euro opportunity, we think. It takes a few years to get there, to get to peak. It takes a lot of hard work, registrations, and time and effort and money to get there, but we are making good progress with Mevalone in particular. What this chart on the left shows you is a number of things: the number of countries in which Mevalone is authorized, the number of disease targets, and the number of crop uses. Again, why that's important is that directly equates to the addressable market for each product. So as this goes up, so does our addressable market. Ultimately, we get the registrations, and then we can sell more. And this is just an idea of the efficacy of our products. Again, it's one thing to have a registered product. It needs to work. It needs to be cost effective for the farmer, but also needs to work in the field. And this just gives an idea of an average of 13 trials, in this case here, where you can see the untreated control is severely impacted by the disease, botrytis. And this is Mevalone on the right-hand side compared to the conventional chemistry. And you can see where it's extremely competitive against those two other products. And then again, looking at the other way around, so the control of our product on botrytis, where again, you can see essentially we're comparable to the existing alternatives. And then if we look at Cedros, the nematicide, the microscopic worms. So again, we have launched this product via Eastman Chemical, a large US-based company. They have the right to sell the product on an exclusive basis in 29 different countries throughout the world. We started selling the product in 2020, so we're a few years in now. Again, luckily we've got US approval towards the end of last year, in California at the beginning of this year. Overall, similar opportunity to Mevalone at around 14 million euros. But we expect really good sales growth this year. And again, similar sort of thing, basically saying the product works. Again, as you might imagine, farmers want to buy something which is effective. And you can see here again that compared to the standards that we use, which we have to use in the trials, and these are regulatory trials, you have to submit this information to the regulators in the EU especially, but also the likes of California, to show that you have an effective product that is worthy of entering the market. And then Ecovelix, which again, Sean will come back to and tell you a bit more about seed treatments and why this is a good opportunity. But we got the Italian emergency use authorization at the end of last year. We were able to sell product towards the end of last year as well. And again, as Sean mentioned, to be able to go from development to sales of product in 3 years in our industry is really quite fast and really quite unheard of. So we're very pleased with this product. Corteva is very much behind this product. They've been doing a lot of PR behind this. And if you Google Ecovelix, you'll find some nice cartoon videos of a scarecrow, but I'll leave you to your imagination. This is a big opportunity for us. It's more than Mevalone and Cedros put together, around a 34 million euro opportunity. So as you might imagine, we're quite keen to push this forward apace. And then again, similar thing. There's one incumbent product in the market in the EU at the moment, which is called Corit. It is absolutely the market leader currently. It's the product that we are after. There are certain side effects with this product which are really not great. We don't have those issues, and we're just as good as Corit is, so, and cost effective. And I'm going to hand back to Sean.
Yeah. One of the unintended consequences of inhaling Corit accidentally is death. So that gives you a pretty good idea. And it literally says that on the label of the product. I'm not being flippant about it. That is literally the case. So in many of these cases where we're competing with incumbent products, what we're doing is we're bringing a product to market that does the same job or better, but we're doing so in such a way that is far less unintended consequences, if you will. And this is a great example of where regulation, although we have to jump through the hurdles, we have to address all the regulators' concerns, and that can take some time and certainly it can take some money. Regulation is what's removing Corit from the market and creating the opportunity for us. So to give you a really good idea of what this means, and I'm sorry if you can't see this, this is on our website actually. What you see here there are actually 6 different plots planted side by side. And in that plot, this is just from the end of last year, we were comparing the efficacy of different seed treatments versus each other and different rates. So we're trying to get a sense of how much do we actually put on the seed, and what does that do? And in this plot here, you can see what happens. This is maize. You can see what happens. This was a control plot where we didn't apply any bird repellent whatsoever. And you can see what happens when there are a lot of birds and there's no bird repellent. What does that mean? I mean, let's put it in really simple terms. It's not just that the farmer's had a bad day. It's that the farmer has spent an awful lot of money to plow X number of hectares and has come up with, yeah, basically no harvestable yield. And this is a huge issue for them. And you can see, and this is why bird repellent seed treatments are used as a matter of insurance policy routinely by farmers. And this is why the market is so attractive. Relatively speaking, as far as seed treatments go, it's somewhat of a niche industry overall. But yet our product, Ecovelix, has been shown to be equally effective, if not more effective, to core it. So moving right along, we'll talk a little bit about the insecticide, and this is our next product to come along. You've probably heard of neonicotinoids, and if that name doesn't resonate with you, because why would it? This is the insecticide that's been attributed to colony collapse disorder in bees and a number of other off-target effects. And there are a long list of insecticides that have been particularly problematic, and as a consequence of that, regulators have been banning them. So there's a very, very strong need for new insecticide chemistry, and what we're bringing to the table across a broad range of different insect pests is a formulated product that tackles those insect pests in a sustainable way without unintended consequences. In other words, without off-target effects on bees, etc. And we're doing that by virtue of, to a sense, to an extent, we're somewhat lucky that we're working with chemistry that has a very balanced set of characteristics associated with it. So we can bring efficacy to the farmer without bringing these unintended consequences to the same extent. And moving along, again, as always, what we're doing is we're comparing ourselves to the standards, and what we're saying here is that our product works just as well. The main point here is that when we show you efficacy data, this isn't marketing data, this is registration data. And registration data is data that we have to put in front of the regulators. It has to be run to what's called the GLP or GEP standard, meaning that these are replicated field trials. These are statistically analyzed to the nth degree, and they have to hold up. So particularly in the EU, when we put a registration dossier in front of the regulators, they are scrutinizing not just whether the product is safe, but whether it's effective. The US has a slightly different approach. The US believes that farmers will decide what they're going to do, and the product, if it doesn't work, the farmer's not going to buy it. It's as simple as that. I tend to agree with that approach personally, but nevertheless, here we are in the EU, proving to the EU regulators that our product, not only is it safe, but it's also effective. Regulatory, I'm not going to bore you with all the details here. We invest very heavily in terms of time, effort, blood, sweat, tears in registration of our products. And as I said earlier, this is the double-edged sword, right? The regulators are giving and they're taking away at the same time, and we're basically trying to simply outpace them. And so far, we're making some considerable progress on that front. So in terms of commercial positioning, this is, we say here on this slide, our commercial footprint. This is actually the list of countries in which we have current product authorizations for either our first product or our second product. We've not listed Ecovelix on here because currently we're operating under an emergency use, so this is a temporary approval. We expect authorization for that product, I'll say in due course, which is the language we tend to use because it's very, very difficult to anticipate when the regulators are going to grant their authorization. But we expect that possibly as soon as this year, could slip into next year. Regulators are a law unto themselves. They're very good at regulating us. They're not so good at regulating themselves. So there we go. That's the harsh reality of the situation. What we have been doing, and over the course of the last 4 years, we've been very fortunate in that we've been successful in raising just over 20 million pounds from a long list of high-profile, good-quality institutional investors, and we've been investing that money in the ongoing development of the business. So if you rewind 4 years, the company was essentially composed of 2 people, Alex and myself. Today we're up to about 20, and this isn't this isn't something we're doing lightly. What we've done is we built our internal capabilities to accelerate product development and registration, and to develop our commercial capabilities, and that's beginning to pay off. And the most obvious way in which that's paying off, to give you a great example, is Ecovelix. That's a product that went from proof of concept in year 1 to the full submission of a regulatory dossier and emergency use within a total of 4 years. That is, I have to say, almost unprecedented in our industry. That is moving at a pace. And the reason we've been able to do that is, one, we have a very effective collaboration with Corteva, who are outstanding development partners. And two, we've got a team of people who are quite capable and are very focused on getting the job done. The number of opportunities we've been talking about are really almost limitless, and we list here a good number of additional opportunities, and I'll elaborate on one of those in a minute. But nevertheless, suffice to say that there is an ongoing list of products, conventional chemistry, that's being removed from the market. That creates opportunities for us, and there's an ongoing list of areas in which the current pesticides are no longer efficacious because of what's called resistance issues, and we're able to tackle those resistance issues because of the chemistry that we're using. So there's the list of opportunities is actually growing year over year. This will give you a very good example, excuse me, of what happens when we expand the label. So sometimes when you expand the label, it's more or less opportunistic, and we do that as quickly as we can with what are called generally minor use applications. So we can expand our label a bit, grow our addressable market a bit, and in essence, we're helping to make the business more and more resilient. There are cases where, for regulatory reasons and other reasons at times, there are opportunities that present themselves. And this is a very good example, downy mildew. By going after the downy mildew market in France, combined with another disease target, which is called powdery mildew, we've actually been able to grow the size of the addressable market in France by tenfold. And that was something that was only developed relatively recently as a direct consequence of the fact that the French regulator removed a product from the market called Mancozeb. So we were approached by two very significant players in the French agrochemical industry saying to us, do you guys have anything to tackle downy mildew? And we said, well, sure, Mevalon will do that, but it's not great. You know, if we put our hands up, we'll say it's not as good against downy mildew as it is against powdery mildew, as it is against botrytis. And they said, well, what does that mean? And we said, well, 40 to 60% efficacy, right? So we can control the disease in 40 to 60% of the cases. And their answer was they couldn't believe how great that was, because in reality, the standard is well less than 40%. And so what we've seen is, well, you will have seen that we appointed Corteva as our distributor in France, and we're working very, very actively with the French regulator to expand the label to ultimately grow that addressable market. Again, we've talked already about some of the additional significant opportunities. These are all areas in which we've done proof of concept and have proven that our products work. And now we're investing the funds that are required to go to the field scale to develop those dossiers that are required by the regulators to prove that the product works, to ultimately secure product registration. And I won't elaborate too much around what our internal capabilities are, but suffice to say, in the last 4 years, we've shifted from a completely outsourced model to a hybrid model where we do a lot of the initial development work in-house so that we can move much, much more quickly than we could when we were reliant on CROs and university development partners. And with that said, I will open it up to questions.
Thank you very much. I'm going to start by saying that I thought botrytis was a good thing until today.
Yeah, only in a few cases, yeah.
Questions, please.
Firstly, IP. Where are you on IP? What level of your operation is protected? Is it the three basic chemicals, or your encapsulation, or what?
Yes.
The second thing is, how much longer will your existing cash level last?
So we'll split these questions between us. So talk a little bit about the IP. So we have I think it's about 120 pending or granted patents. Actually, the vast majority of the patents are granted already. That's spread across 6 different patent families. We have very strong composition of matter patents that involve the use of our active ingredients with the microencapsulation technology. So we have a very nice position from that perspective. And we have what are called supplementary protection certificates. that are in place that provide that patent protection on an extended basis, which is something that's offered in some territories around the world. So in the EU, the UK, the US has an equivalent. They don't call it an SPC, but they call it something different as a patent life extension. But the patent offices, a number of patent offices around the world grant those when they recognize that the barrier to entry involves a long regulatory process, so we get a bit of extended life. The other key bit of our IP, to be frank, is our product registrations. So we've registered not only our formulated products, but our active ingredients. And we are the only registered sources of those active ingredients in the world for crop protection. And so that provides us with a great deal of protection, because the dossiers that are required to support those product registrations take 2 to 5 years to develop and millions of pounds. So there's a barrier to entry in that regard as well. Okay, and
in terms of cash, the answer is easier. We're good for cash. We raised some money in October last year, £10 million. We raised that based on the existing business plan, which sees us through for a good number of years and ideally into positive EBITDA territory in the not too distant future. So assuming we stick to the business plan, assuming we execute, which we expect to do and have been doing over the past few years, and on the basis we don't make acquisitions or do something extraordinary, then we're in a good position.
I've got a few questions.
a few, you okay?
The last question was about IP and
Yes.
patents. I know from my years in the pharmaceutical industry and being involved on that side of things for a lot of the time, that particularly towards the end of life, they're very, very expensive to maintain.
Yes.
And I think I was being quoted for some of my less salubrious ones, which I filed during my time there, about 20,000 a year if you wanted worldwide coverage. I think you said you had 130.
It's about 120.
Yeah, is that 2.5 million a year if they all went? No, cheaper than that.
Yeah.
But no doubt,
Substantially.
no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A patent guarantees you one thing, which
Yeah.
is that you're going to pay fees.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
That's what it guarantees you.
Yeah, it certainly
Yeah.
doesn't guarantee that you can make and sell the product. that's
No,
for sure.
definitely not. Definitely not.
Okay. Do any of your, or have any of your customers ever used or contemplating use of off-label use for some of your products? So, for example, you've got the mold product for grapes.
Yeah.
Are they going to try it on, I don't know, apples?
The industry is very, very highly regulated, as you might imagine. It's not completely dissimilar to the pharmaceutical
Yeah.
industry, but to put it into context, farmers are routinely audited by not only their customers, but also the regulators. And the very unfortunate thing for them is that pesticide residues are quite often traceable.
Yeah.
And quite often for a very long period of time, as in weeks, if not months. And so generally speaking, you don't see people going off-label very often. And certainly you can't promote products for
Yeah,
off-label
quite.
uses. That's not allowed. I can't think of a single territory in the world where off-label uses are allowed.
Okay. I've got a couple more. Sorry, Ali. You mentioned 3 actives.
Mhm.
I guess the first one you were talking about, Mevalone, that was all.
Well, the actives are geraniol, eugenol, and thymol.
Oh, okay.
right?
So they're all essential aromatic oils.
They're all
volatile.
derived from essential oils. That's
Okay.
right.
So
They all make up a part of the plant's immune system, if you want to call it that. So they're defense and signaling molecules. We didn't invent those molecules.
not.
What we invented
Yeah.
was the way to a way to formulate them, or several ways, in fact, to formulate them into usable products.
okay. So I guess birds don't like the taste. Is that why they?
They don't like them. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole product idea came about as a really slightly interesting story, in that we all got into a room with folks from Corteva in a really horrible hotel conference room in Belgium a
Yeah.
good number of years ago, and they said, do you think your products would work as bird repellents? And we went, I don't know. They smell, so maybe. Let's see. And so we went in and did the proof of concept in the first year. And to our delight, everybody's delight, they came back and Corteva ran the trials. It wasn't us running the
Okay.
trials. And they put the data on the table and said, they do work. And, the rest is history.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
We're going to run out of time, I think, very quickly. So, one question each.
Well, I've actually got two questions, but the second one depends on the answer to the
It's
first.
one question about A and B. Yeah. Okay. that's fine.
Do you actually manufacture the product yourself, or is it a licensing model where you collect a royalty?
It's not a licensing model, no. So we develop, and register, and sell the products themselves. We use contract manufacturers. So it's not really either of those scenarios. We contract with contract manufacturers. They make the product on our behalf. The product ships under Eden's name. That's the way it works.
So the second half of the question was the essential oils that you use. Are they readily available or any
Yes.
restrictions?
Yeah. There are so we're using the pure compounds that are. You can find them in essential oils. So, for example, eugenol, one of our registered actives, is present in something like 80% of clove oil is eugenol. If you smell clove oil, what you're smelling is eugenol. One of the other active ingredients is thymol. If you smell Listerine mouthwash, or if you've ever used Listerine mouthwash, that quite unpleasant taste is thymol. They're very, very effective fungicides, bactericides, insecticides, etc.
I'm just wondering, the focus is on developing products which are sustainable but equally effective.
Yeah.
What's involved? What would be involved in developing something which is sustainable but better in effectiveness?
How would we? Well, so it's a good question. It's a very long answer, I'm afraid. But if I understand correctly, you're saying, could you make your products more effective? And the answer is really the art of formulation is essential, just like it is in pharma. You have to be able to take an active ingredient and package it up in the right way and ensure that you're getting a product with the right level of efficacy. And then if you say, but actually we want to boost the efficacy, how do we do that? It all comes down to things like surface chemistry, for example, and being sure that the product wets out a leaf surface, for example, or in the use case where it's being applied, that it has sort of optimal delivery into that environment, and that the active ingredient is bioavailable so that it can do its job. One of the things that our microencapsulation technology does is it enhances the bioavailability of the active ingredient. So you have to have the active ingredient in a semi-soluble state or even a soluble state in order for it to deliver the efficacy that it has inherently. And so there are one of our key, very creatively named projects in-house at the moment is something we call creatively Fungicide 2. And that's an improvement on Mevalone, right? It's not really an improvement on Mevalone for botrytis, for example. It's an improvement that brings us into areas where we have other disease targets where Mevalone isn't quite good enough, but we see an opportunity. And just by changing the formulation, changing the active ingredients and the ratios, we're able to achieve much higher levels of efficacy.
Question that springs to mind is, why are you not expanding? Is it regulation? Wouldn't it be marvelous if your products were being used in Africa?
Yes. Yeah, no, absolutely. There are opportunities in Africa. In fact, we have an authorization in Kenya for our product, and it has been sold in Kenya, not as much as we would like to see. So this is a distributor management issue, to be very open with you about it. We are working on that as a matter of higher priority today than it has been historically. Why aren't we expanding more rapidly? Great question. And well, we're both commercial people by mentality anyway. Growth is really important, and rapid growth is important. In our industry, if we were Corteva, for example, or Syngenta, or Bayer, or BASF, and we came across 3 active ingredients like ours and product formulations like ours from the beginning, would we have gone out and registered on one product and one disease target? No, we would have gone like this immediately. But because we're an AIM-listed nano-cap company with limited access to capital in the early days, much more so than today, we had to pick very, very much according to how much cloth we had. And so we went with a very narrow registration on the basis that if we could achieve product registration and get a product into the market, then we'll have a more credible story for investors. We couldn't magic money. I mean, it would be very nice, but because we couldn't magic money, at the end of the day, we want the very much more narrow remit. We're trying to correct that now and to grow. So as you see, we're making some good progress. The label is expanding. The pace of growth will increase.
Sorry, no, I have to.
congratulate you on the way you explain things in a subject which is not necessarily easy to understand.
Oh, thank you. It's nice to
Having
hear.
been rude to Ray at the beginning, I need to allow one more.
It's intriguing that you use biological substances for your products, because of course some of the most lethal poisons on the world are natural.
Yes.
What evidence do you have that very widespread use of your product might have its own problems or not?
No, that's a great question, and you're spot on. Arsenic is natural. Copper, bizarrely, the solution for the organic growing industry for some fungicide uses is copper. Copper is persistent, bioaccumulative, and toxic, right? It kills fish, it kills insects, kills algae, it kills a lot. It also kills fungi, so that's a benefit in some respects if used carefully. The point really is how do we know that our products aren't problematic? Well, we don't until the regulators make us go and prove that they're not. And so we spend a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort proving that those products are not accumulating in the environment, okay? That residues are not above and beyond what would be a reasonable level. It's important to note that each of these active ingredients is present naturally in the environment. So if you go chop up a bunch of maize and do an extract and try to understand what's in it, you will find geraniol and eugenol and thymol, whether our products were applied or not. And so that's one of the real challenges. But with natural compounds like ours, and this is a rule of thumb, and I'm sure there are exceptions, but as a rule of thumb, products that have a natural origin, that have a natural place in biology, tend to have natural dissipation routes, right? And they dissipate either through physical or biological chemistry, if you will, physical or biological activity, and there are endpoints for them in the environment. Whereas a lot of synthetic compounds do struggle with this as an issue. That what is the route to degradation might be unknown, or there might not be one, in which case they become cumulative.
Thank you.
Okay,
Sean,
thank you.
Alex, thank you very much indeed. Fascinating.